The stage lights burned white across my face, and my palms were slick, clutching the note cards so tightly that the print bled into my skin. Somewhere out in the dark was the panel of investors I had courted, harassed, pleaded with for months to get a slot. Their silhouettes were impassive lines against the warmth of the spotlights. I could see nothing of their eyes. I cleared my throat, forcing my slides to advance. My voice rang in the emptiness. Tokyo needs spaces that breathe, I began, and I heard the almost imperceptible cough from the front table. I've designed a residential tower that's also a living garden. I stumbled on the word just as the slide with my sketch stuttered and then froze, stuck on a blank screen. The audience murmured, shifting in their chairs. Panic prickled behind my ears. No amount of rehearsal forecasted this. My laptop, perfectly functional 2 minutes ago, now mocked me with its defiance. Desperately, I started talking, my hands waving sketches in the air only I could see. Each floor opens into a shared greenhouse. Foliage acts as living insulation and, from a row behind the panel, a man's rich baritone cut across my words. Is this a fantasy or a business plan? Laughter rippled through the room, cold and dismissive. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I pressed on, voice warbling. This isn't fantasy. I've modeled energy savings. And another voice. Are you an architect or a gardener? A woman looked down at her notes, bored. My words fell into silence. I wrapped up, stammering through my closing, each syllable dragged, heavy and meaningless. No one clapped. They just wrote quietly, pens scratching. I barely remembered how I left the stage, my feet automatic, eyes fixed on the polished wooden floor. Outside, November wind slapped my cheeks. I hunched my shoulders, clutching my roll of blueprints as if they could shield me. I could feel every eye of every investor that had ever heard my name waiting, just waiting, for me to give it up and vanish. An hour later, the train pitched me out at Kitasenju, gutters of rain shining on concrete. I ran up the narrow stairs to my family's apartment, warmth swelling as I opened the door. My mother was in the kitchen, slicing cucumbers, fragrant miso drifting through the tiny rooms. She dried her hands and met my eyes with gentle expectation. "How was it?" she asked. My father didn't bother looking up from the paper, but I caught the arch of his brow, ready for what he thought would be a familiar tale. I lied. "Fine, I learned a lot." But my mother's gaze moved past me, taking in the tired sag of my shoulders. She exhaled slowly and patted my arm but said nothing more. After dinner, I joined my younger sister Yui in the cramped sitting room. She perched on the edge of the futon, headphones around her neck, legs crossed, ready to escape. "Another bust, huh?" she said, reading my silence. "I messed up the pitch. My slides died," I answered. She grinned, unsympathetic. "Well, I told you it was silly. Who wants to live in a jungle on the 15th floor? Why not do something useful, like video game design?" Her words bit, but what hurt was the memory of my family's teasing, year after year. Father, scoffing at blueprint papers scattered on the table. "No one in Japan wants these childish dreams. Be reasonable, Kyoto." Neighbors snorting in alleys as my mother told them about my university plans. "He thinks he'll change Tokyo." As if Tokyo cares. For years I carried their mockery, sometimes with defiance, sometimes with shame. And that night after the failed pitch, I let myself sink into it. In my bed, I listened to toast crusts crunching in the kitchen, my father murmuring disappointment to my mother, faint as a sigh. I felt young and small and irrelevant. Hot tears slid from my temples to my ears, but for the first time they were quiet, not angry, just pain, pure and clear, grief for a dream stillborn. But somewhere beneath that grief, clarity threaded through me. I saw for one plain moment the shape of all these years, chasing validation, tiny scraps of encouragement that never quite outweighed rejection. I kept waiting for permission from people who'd never believe, waiting for success so I could come home triumphant and gloat. The neon and concrete of Tokyo hummed outside, oblivious. I decided right then that winning them over was no longer my fuel. I'd do it because the city needed it, even if no one applauded. In the bare pale dawn, I packed my blueprints and caught a Shinkansen south. I stayed away. For years, Tokyo passed without me, its pulse steady as ever. I moved to smaller cities, picking up freelance drafting jobs, entering tiny design competitions no one outside architectural circles cared about. I learned from every failed bid, every terse rejection letter. On dusty train benches, I filled notebooks with sketches for other people's projects, absorbing the physics of load, the art in shadow and light, the truth that buildings were never just idols for egos. I slept on friends' couches, ate convenience store rice balls, and slowly, without noticing, I got better. In Osaka, I joined a mid-size firm. They let me draft balconies and bathroom corridors, nothing glamorous, but when I saw a chance to join a green infrastructure project, I volunteered, working nights for free. The head architect, a laconic woman from Sapporo, asked me once, "Why do you care so much about gardens in concrete?" I tried to explain. My grandfather's stories of cherry trees lost when they built the highways, the heavy air in August, the joy of green in my mother's window. She just grinned and nodded. The project made city news, a local school with a living wall. My name was sixth on the credit list, but it was there. After that, life got faster, another green project, then another. I rebuilt my network one handshake at a time. When the Tokyo District Commission called for public designs on an urban mid-rise, I submitted plans quietly, with no fairy tale expectations. 6 months after, I opened an email headed, "Project Shortlist Urban Oasis." Out of 311 applicants, my design was one of 5. I didn't tell my parents, I barely told anyone. But I climbed up to the roof of my tiny Osaka apartment that night and held my arms out to the city, letting the cold bite my fingertips. The round table presentation was smaller, more focused. The commissioners asked sharp questions about irrigation budgets, elevators. I defended my plan, referencing studies and cost models, not flights of fancy I'd learned. They nodded, skeptical but respectful. In April, a call came. "Congratulations, Kyoto-san, the Urban Oasis project is yours." I stepped into the wind, letting the moment hang. I called my mom, the line hummed. "I got a job back in Tokyo," I said. I didn't offer details, but she caught the tremble in my voice and asked no more. Building the tower was a war of patience, not a heroic charge. Teams grumbled about maintenance, costs ballooned, and naysayers lined every step. One developer called me an amateur with a gardening complex. There were days I pressed my head to the elevator walls, letting the metallic hum drown out spiraling doubts. But every morning the structure grew by a meter, steel, then glass, then squared latticework for climbers and greenery. Plumbers and engineers grew grudging interest in my plans. Seniors from the high school next door wandered past to comment, sometimes skeptical, sometimes quietly amazed. The first time a scaffolding worker tucked a sunflower seed into the soil himself, I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. It took 3 years. By the end, tiredness had etched lines into my jaw and my hair was showing grey at the temples. Each floor stepped back in a spiral, garden beds overhanging, glass balustrades opening onto what would soon be a whispering wall of sweet potato vines, hydrangeas, and bamboo. Standing out on the completion day, Tokyo's towers hunched in orderly blocks all around us, and for once I felt mine could smile back. On the eve of the opening, I wrote my parents. The event would be quiet, a slow local unveiling. I sent tickets for the nearest Saturday, tucking a photo of the tower into the envelope. I sent the same to Yui, now deep into adulthood herself, with her own small family. They arrived late, my mother flustered in a checked blouse, my father stiff in a suit that had seen too many temple weddings. Yui held her little boy's hand, all plain on his face as he stared up and up at the green-wreathed spiral. We met in the lobby, smells of earth and wet concrete mixing, sunlight pooling in the glass atrium. My father said nothing for a long time, just stared through the interior glass at the first of the terraced gardens above. At last he cleared his throat. "They actually built it." His voice was different, not jest, not derision, just a baffled sort of respect, as if forced to relearn his son. We joined the crowd winding up the ramp. The mayor's speech vanished into echoes. My mother clutched my arm, weeping quietly, a tissue pressed to her mouth. "You made this, Kyoto," she whispered. "Every inch," I replied, voice hoarse. As we moved higher, the city unraveled, tiled roofs, neon veins, grey running beneath an expanse of living green. People leaned on railings, brushing hands through fragrant lavender, reading labels on mountain herbs. Schoolchildren sketched the view. My nephew chased a swallowtail butterfly beneath a draping wisteria and called for me to see. The critics came too, from the old neighborhood, distant relatives and men older than the city itself, some with stooped shoulders, some with knowing smiles. Old Mr. Nishida arrived, the one who used to unroll my childhood sketches, sneering at my fairy castles. He watched quietly as city officials cut the ribbon, as local news crews filmed tourists and locals wandering through living rooms hung with ferns, corridors glowing with dappled sun. He nudged my father. Maybe he wasn't as foolish as we thought, Satoshi. My father grunted, but his hands were trembling a little, a crack in his armor. Who'd have guessed? "I did," my mother said, voice firm now, standing straight as the sunlight caught her grey hair. Outside, the midday light poured through my tower's glass bones, illuminating every angle, every green pocket. My nephew pulled me by the hand. "Can we go up to the top?" he begged. We rode the elevator together, family and old neighbors and half the district trailing behind. The doors opened and we stepped onto the rooftop, pure sky, gardens in bloom, the whole horizon a living wall of breath and color. Tokyo. My city at last changed by my hands. Cameras flashed, press, officials, curious parents. Some of the very investors who'd laughed me off stage that far-off night now shuffled awkwardly on the margin, invited by the city for a tour. I caught the eye of one, the baritone who'd called me a fantasist. Recognition flickered, his polite congratulations were clipped and quiet. As he took in the reality of the structure, I saw confusion win over contempt. Maybe once I would have demanded more. Now I only gave him a small, real nod, nothing more. Victory didn't taste like they promised. It was earthier, rooted, so much more peaceful. When the day waned to orange and the crowds drifted away, I walked the outer balcony with my family, my mother's hand tucked inside my elbow. My father found his voice at last. "It's a good building, Kyoto, better than I ever understood." I was wrong. He met my eyes, old pride breaking under something gentler. "I didn't do it to prove you wrong," I said quietly. He nodded, understanding, and something closed, a circuit of old pain completed at last. We stood in the shadow of the garden tower together, letting the quiet come. Drifts of summer, jasmine clothed the breeze, city sounds below muffled to a rich, distant hum. I had come home, not because I needed applause, but because the city needed green, and because I had learned to build it with or without belief. And now, standing among my family, the doubters, my classmates' children, and the city's pulse, I let that fact rest inside me, a certainty clearer and gentler than any childhood dream.